You're standing in one of the most prestigious museums in the world. The painting in front of you is worth $40 million. Art historians have studied it, scientists have tested it, collectors have fought over it. And there is a very real chance that every single one of them is wrong. Because the painting might be fake. Not a rough copy, not an obvious imitation. A perfect, untraceable, scientifically certified forgery, made by a person whose name you will never find in any art history book, hanging in a gallery that charges you $20 to walk through the door and believe a lie. Art forgery is not a footnote in history. It is a parallel universe running alongside the legitimate art world. And the dark truth is that the system designed to stop it is often the very thing that allows it to thrive. Here is where it starts. Your brain has a weakness. When something is told to you with enough authority and enough confidence, you believe it. This is not stupidity. It is how you are wired. Psychologists call it the authority bias, the tendency to assign greater accuracy to the opinion of an authority figure. And nowhere on earth does authority carry more weight than in the art world. Imagine you are handed a canvas, no label, no history, no expert opinion. You look at it, you form an impression. Now imagine an expert walks in, points at it, and says the words, "This is a Rembrandt." Your brain does not reevaluate the painting. Your brain reevaluates itself. Suddenly, you see things you did not see before. The brushwork looks more assured. The light looks more intentional. The whole thing looks more expensive. The painting did not change. You did. This is not a guess. In a 2011 study published in Frontiers in Human Neuroscience, researchers found that when participants were told a painting was authentic, their brains showed significantly higher activity in regions associated with reward and aesthetic pleasure. The painting was identical in both conditions. The label was the only variable. Your brain is not looking at the painting. It is looking at the story attached to it. And forgers know this better than anyone. Han van Meegeren understood it in 1937. He was a Dutch painter, technically gifted, deeply bitter. The critics had dismissed him. The art establishment had ignored him. So he decided to destroy them from the inside. He spent years studying Vermeer, not just the style, not just the subject matter, but the materials. He aged his canvases artificially. He mixed his own pigments using formulas from the 17th century. He used badger hair brushes to replicate the texture of 300-year-old paint. And then he created a painting so convincing that it fooled one of the most respected art historians in the world, Abraham Bredius, who declared it a genuine Vermeer masterpiece. The painting sold for the equivalent of millions in today's money. Van Meegeren did it 5 more times. Nobody noticed. He was only caught because one of his forgeries ended up in the possession of a Nazi war criminal, and after the war, he had to prove he had sold a fake, rather than admit he had sold a cultural treasure to the enemy. He was celebrated. People actually cheered when he revealed what he had done. Because he had proved something the art world did not want to admit. The experts were not infallible. They were human. And humans are susceptible to exactly the same cognitive traps as everyone else. But here is where it gets darker. Van Meegeren was caught. Most forgers are not. And the reason is not because forgery is easy to get away with. It is because the system has no real incentive to catch it. Think about what happens when a forgery is discovered. The museum that displayed it looks incompetent. The auction house that sold it loses credibility. The collector who paid $40 million for it loses everything: money, status, the story they told at dinner parties. The expert who authenticated it loses their reputation. Every single party in the chain is motivated to keep the forgery a secret, or at the very least, to not go looking too hard. This is not speculation. In 2012, a scandal emerged in New York that exposed exactly this dynamic. The Knoedler Gallery, one of the oldest and most prestigious art dealers in the United States, operating since 1846, was found to have sold approximately 63 forged paintings over a 15-year period, generating over $80 million in sales. The forgeries were made by a Chinese immigrant named Pei Shen Chen, working in a garage in Queens, New York. He was producing fake Rothkos, fake Pollocks, fake de Koonings, and the gallery was selling them to the most sophisticated collectors in the world.
The buyers were not naive. They were billionaires with access to the best experts money could buy, and still the fakes got through. When the scandal broke, Pei Shen Qian had already fled to China. The gallery closed, lawsuits erupted, and the buyers, who had paid millions each, were left holding pieces of canvas worth nothing. But here's the question nobody asks loudly enough. How many forgeries like this are still hanging on walls right now, not discovered, not reported, just quietly collecting dust in the living rooms of people who will never, ever commission the kind of forensic investigation that might ruin their investment? The scientific tools exist. X-ray fluorescence can identify anachronistic pigments, colors that were not invented until after the supposed date of a painting. Radiocarbon dating can pin down the age of canvas and linen within decades. Infrared reflectography can reveal the underdrawing beneath the paint, which often differs dramatically between authentic masters and their imitators. Gas chromatography can analyze the exact chemical composition of binding agents and varnishes. These tests are extraordinary. They are also extraordinarily expensive. And they are not required. There is no global authority that mandates forensic testing before a painting changes hands. The art market is one of the least regulated markets on Earth. In most jurisdictions, you can buy and sell a painting worth $100 million with less paperwork than it takes to purchase a used car. And provenance, the documented history of where a painting has been, is the primary tool the market relies on instead. Provenance is meant to be an unbroken chain of ownership, tracing a work back to the artist's studio. In theory, it is the gold standard of authentication. In practice, it is a document, and documents can be forged. Wolfgang Beltracchi discovered this with breathtaking efficiency. He was a German painter who spent the 1990s and 2000s producing hundreds of fake early 20th century masterworks: Leger, Ernst, Campendonck, Pechstein. But his real genius was not the painting. It was the paperwork. He created fictional collectors, invented family estates, manufactured auction records that had never existed, and aged photographs of the works using vintage cameras and period-correct materials. He built entire fake histories from scratch. When authorities finally caught him in 2010, he had sold forgeries totaling over 40 million euros. At his sentencing, he admitted that many of his works had never been found. They are still out there. And this brings you to the most unsettling part of all of this. The great art forgers are not simply criminals. Many of them are, by any technical measure, among the most gifted painters of their generations. Mark Landis is an American forger who donated, not sold, fake paintings to over 40 American museums over a 30-year period. He never made a cent from it. He dressed as a priest. He brought paintings wrapped in newspaper. He was motivated by something closer to performance art than financial gain. The FBI investigated him. They could not charge him with a crime because he never accepted payment. The museums quietly removed the works. Most never made public announcements. What does it mean that a man could walk into 40 museums with fake paintings and nobody noticed for 30 years? It means that the act of looking at art is not the pure, unmediated experience you believe it to be. Every painting you have ever stood in front of was filtered through a label, a context, an institution, and a price tag. Your aesthetic response was shaped before you even raised your eyes to the canvas. The art was not just on the wall. The art was the entire system surrounding the wall. Researcher Dennis Dutton argued in his 2009 book, The Art Instinct, that authenticity matters to humans not because we can perceive it directly, but because we are drawn to the narrative of human effort. We want to know that a real person, at a real moment in time, made a choice to put paint exactly there. A forgery, even a perfect one, breaks that contract. Not because it looks different, because the story is different. And the story is everything. So the next time you stand in front of a painting, in a gallery, in a museum, in a catalog, anywhere, ask yourself one question. If you removed the label, the price, the expert opinion, and the institutional authority, would you still feel the same thing? If the answer is yes, maybe the painting is doing its job. If the answer is no, you are not looking at art. You are looking at a story someone told you, and you believed it, just like you were always going to.
Because your brain was never looking at the painting. It was looking at the label. And that is the dark truth about art forgery that nobody in the art world wants you to know. The forgery is not just the painting on the wall. Sometimes, the forgery is the wall itself.